Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Mostly True podcast, brought to you by NewsSpark Entertainment. Today, we're talking about a little period that some people, including me, like to call the classical period. But before we get started, we want to take a moment to thank some of the people that make this pod possible.
Today's episode is made possible through the tireless efforts of an army of squirrel riders currently being held hostage in cages underground.
What? This is not... I don't have that.
They live on a diet of acorns flown in every day from Lithuania. Most people don't know this, but Lithuanian acorns contain trace elements of cocaine alkaloid.
You're saying we have a coked up squirrel rider? Where did you get this?
Yep, and most people don't know this, but cocaine acorns are actually Lithuania's biggest export.
No, they're not.
Don't test me on this.
I don't. I think it's oil.
I'm pretty sure it's pronounced acorns.
I'm pretty sure. Yes, it is. I just looked it up. Yes. It's petroleum. It's oil.
Well, speaking of nuts, you'd be crazy if you were still listening to this pod and not subscribed.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you know what? You're right. That would be crazy. Why would anyone want that?
Couldn't tell you. So, if you have the patience to make it through that joke, you should definitely give us a follow.
Yeah, that was a joke. That was a joke, all right.
Anyway, enjoy the episode.
Welcome to Mostly True. It's like a podcast.
So you were telling me that you have recently started a new hobby.
Yeah, I have. And we also made it a point when we were literally just talking on the call before we started recording. We were like, no, don't say anything. Save it for the podcast.
Save it for the pod. We have to save it for the pod.
So my new podcast, my new hobby, I decided that I wanted to start drawing because I just found like between work and, you know, if I was working on the podcast or working on any like creative writing or editing or whatever, I was just staring at so many screens. So I kind of was like, I need something else to do. So I decided I'm going to be a drawer.
Love it.
Right now I don't know how to draw much. So I'm kind of sticking to lines and shapes.
Those are good. That's the basis of anything.
But I really like the structured thing. So so my first piece of art, which I framed. Well, I'm
presumptuous.
This makes me sound like, yeah, but it was mainly because I had a bunch of frames that I bought and I needed to fill. And I was like, you know what? I could make art. I've seen art and I could do some of it.
Do that.
I could
do.
So this is what I mean when I say like lines.
That's really good.
So isn't that fun? The other thing that I also started drawing is little monsters. Because I'm not good at drawing people.
No.
People are hard to draw.
Those are really hard. Yeah, exactly.
But I can do things that don't need to look like anything on the known planet.
I'm really excited to see these.
And so
here's the known planet.
Here's one that I call the wart snarl.
Yes. That's also really good. You're talented, Mitch.
So he's just a little monster. Well, I definitely just ripped it off of some pictures that I saw online. So,
well, okay, it's losing impact on me now when you say that. But I'm going to believe that you just have this talent because clearly you did the drawing, even if you took the inspiration. You still
and I didn't trace.
No tracing. That's really good. That's really good.
A fun little hobby, and maybe I'll draw monsters for my friends.
I would love a monster from you.
Okay.
Mitch's monsters.
Mitch's monsters.
Really
I'll start a children's book and it'll be like none of the monsters. It would be about like fitting in, you know, like none of the monsters feel like they fit in because they're not anything on this known planet, you know?
It's that phrase that just sends me every time. Can we write a children's book together?
Honestly, that would be pretty good.
Yeah. That's a market we have yet to crack into, and I think not enough people are writing children's books. I think I don't know. That's a statistic I'm gonna invent right now.
Should we talk about the talk at this point? Unless you have any hobbies you need to tell me about.
I've been starting to try to I'm not good at remembering to journal. Like, I wanna be writing things down all the time, but I'm not very good at being like, "Okay, I'm gonna sit down and write them down." And so instead I've been I guess this is kind of like brain rotty, but I've just been like journaling in my notes app, but it's not real journaling. It's not like I'm like, "Dear diary." It's like, "This just happened and I want to remember this
Mm,
moment." It's like when specifically crazy things happen and I'm like, "I have to write down this so I can tell someone this later." So I have a lot of accounts of things that have happened to me in my notes app.
but
Not as cool as monsters, but
as a wart snarl.
yeah, precisely. As
All
classic
right.
as the wart snarl is, nothing is as classic as the classical era.
Yes, that was a good segue.
Thank you. Natural as well.
Yeah. So, classical era, means we're talking about today, 1750 to 1825. Something that's cool about this period is that we've talked a lot about like the Baroque and everything, and this is kind of the first time that all of Europe feels like it's on the same page in terms of most of the music stuff that's happening. You know, the Baroque is a lot of like things are being invented, all of this stuff is happening. And so as we move into the classical period, it's kind of cool because that's when like everything is a little bit more set. And we'll get into that more later. But that's
Yes.
the big thing.
Around this same time, America, that place, is fighting for independence, specifically democracy. And we have a lot of like free thinkers and theorists at the time, like Voltaire and Diderot, John Locke, uh,
Mm,
and Thomas and Jefferson, if you will, Thomas Jefferson and Mr. Franklin, and they at this point were spending prior to this a lot of time in Europe, a lot of time basically
that's right.
schmoozing and boozing to like make connections and money, etc., for what became the independence fight.
Yeah. So like all of the stuff is just like seeping together, which is kind of
Yeah,
interesting
seeping,
because it's
seeping together.
seeping.
Like the international exchange of culture is alive and well at this time.
Hmm.
And so what does the music sound like in the classical era? Like what differentiates it from the music that came before it?
Well, I think a big thing about the classical era, which I have a tendency to forget, is that at its heart, the classical era is kind of about simplicity in a lot of ways because the Baroque time period the classical era was kind of like a response to the Baroque in a lot of ways, where like Baroque was heavily ornamented and very, in some might call it extra.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
Classical was saying like, no, like let's break it down. Let's really think about like the form of what we're doing and kind of broke down a lot of that craziness that it felt like was happening musically. And so that's not to say that classical music is dumber. It's just a lot more to the point, I feel like, when
It's
we
like
think about like
controlled.
musical. Hmm.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so a lot more homophonic, a lot less going on, less busyness, more of like a singular melodic line over like supporting chordal structure. And I think counterpoint was still very relevant to composition. It was not like we're throwing that away. Goodbye. That
Mm.
remains part. I mean, it's part of music education even to this day, and I think remains a big part of like the classical identity in a lot of ways. But at the time, I know there was a style referred to the style galant, or called the style galant, and it was the hot thing of the time, which basically emphasizes elegance and simplicity and sort of like the purity of the music over the seriousness and the extreme emotion and grandeur that was really characteristic of the Baroque style. So it definitely feels like they were like, "Oh, that's kind of embarrassing. That's a little too much. We are refined and we have some self restraint, you
Hmm.
know?"
Yeah. Kind of like I mean, when we were prepping for this, we talked about it a bit, but there was the big, it's talked about more in the art scene, I think, than it is music. But
Hmm.
there's a term for this era with a lot of the art was this, but it's called the Rococo.
Yes. And similarly with architecture too.
hmm So it was like things were getting very, very ornate, elaborate, some would say over the top even. And so that
Yeah.
was happening with a lot of the music too in the Baroque as we right before the classical period. And so people were a lot of the composers were kind of starting to think like, have we lost the plot? Have we
Are we doing too much? Yeah.
hmm like what
What
is
is
the melody
music?
that we're trying to get across? Like what is we've lost it. We've lost it.
Yeah, I think that we see these like responses to artistic movement, or not even that, just cultural zeitgeist kind of, and
hmm
things that happen a lot. And I think it's probably even harder to keep track of now because things like trends move so quickly. But I know that millennial gray in a lot of ways was a response to the kind of like early 2000s um McMansion-y Olive Garden style that a lot
Yeah.
of like suburban homes had. A lot of restaurants from that period have like wallpaper and columns inside, like Cheesecake Factory.
hmm
Why is there ivy and like grapevines hanging from the ceiling? Why is the kitchen in this four-bedroom home like Tuscan inspired? That kind of a thing. And so I think people that grew up with that style that sort of associated as like, it's old, that's like what my parents' house looked like. It was just like, it's too much, I'm tired of it. And the millennial gray, or like the intense simplification of interior design and like stripping back of, we're not doing
hmm
wallpaper, we're not doing columns, we're not doing crazy like European style, apparently, interior design. We're doing like clean lines, white, gray walls, things that are very easy to make universal and very not millennial, but yes, millennial, but minimal compared to what they came after.
Yeah.
I
I feel
recently
like
watched
it's
like
kind
a
of
YouTube essay on that, and it's been everywhere for me now.
yeah. I think it's kind of interesting that it like when you think about it as this like cyclical nature of things where like every generation after is some sort of response to the previous.
Totally.
Um, and so I think it's interesting that I think in terms of Western music, this is the first time that we're really seeing like a very clear, documented response to, you know, the previous, especially like
Yeah.
some of the composers we're going to talk about briefly in a sec here. We have a very literal response in terms of like the Bachs, right? Like we have,
Yes. Hmm.
you know, J.S. Bach, and then all of his kids to a certain degree have like their musical style that is kind of in response to like what their dad would have taught them and like what they decided was like, sure, this is cool, but here's what I want to do, you know?
Yeah, totally. And sort of the exploration of style. I think also, like, I wonder how the younger Bachs would be considered in music if they didn't have that name. I
hmm
wonder if their contributions would be considered more original or less important had they not kind of been born into that. I guess they were
Yeah.
sort of like nepo baby composers in a lot
Yeah.
of ways.
Some of the first. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's also like maybe the cream rose to the top because we only really talk about two of them. And if they were all composers, then clearly some of them were just like, this is the family business.
hmm
Maybe they were not that special or amazing. They probably were lost to the sands of history because they were just sort of like a guy with a name.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting because I don't know. I think they needed their dad in a lot of ways to be relevant because in most of the writings that I was reading, it was kind of like the people that were about to come after them, Haydn and Mozart, did what they did just better. And so I think the reason that they're on the map is because they were this in between bit between what their dad was doing and what was going to come after them. But
Yeah,
not to say they weren't important because they still definitely were the ones that were able to teach the generation.
that's true. They were very influential on on several pretty notable composers, and I think we can't be like, there's really no way they were that influential. Like, I bet that I could have been better than them. Like, there's no there's no reason to discount them, so I shouldn't do that. But I like to think of them as nepo babies.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely a little bit of that in there.
So should we talk about Bach and some of his children?
I think
Oh,
so. I think
hi.
that makes the most sense.
My cat
Is
is
that
here.
Bia?
Yeah, she's back there.
Hey, Bia.
She's in the closet. She loves the closet.
Did we ever say who Bia is?
Oh, it's my cat. Yeah.
Well, yeah, for the listeners that...
Oh, yeah. I forgot. If you can't see, I kind of forgot how this works. I don't have the brain for radio, but I do have the face for radio. Bia is my cat, and she emerged behind me, and she is in the closet, and she's looking at me from around the door, but she is unwilling to come over here. I'm sure she'll just
Not
continue
interested.
to speak from the closet as she
For
does.
all of those that just thought Emily has a random person in her closet.
Do you hear her? Can you hear the cat? Maybe not. Anyways, she's not mic'd up. Okay. Bach had a bunch of kids. A lot of them were composers and did a majority of their work in this kind of like weird in-between time that we're in.
Mm-hmm.
Johann Christian Bach was born in 1735 and lived until 1782. So he was like right in there with the classical period, which technically began in 1750.
Yeah, so he was the perfect, he's, I think, like the perfect example of a cusper.
Absolutely, a cusper, yes. He was the youngest of the Bach children, and he became known as the London Bach eventually. The London Bach. And his music was kind of characterized more with lightness and grace and was less, I don't know, intense or like concise as his father.
Yeah, a little more playful, I think.
Yeah, I think so. He became the music master to Queen Charlotte in England, and while he was in England, he met a soprano named Cecilia Grossi, who was 11 years younger than him. I don't know how old he was when they got married, but considering the fact that he only lived to be like 47, I doubt that she was like a great age. But
it's fun.
Also significant, not more significant, he befriended an 8-year-old Mozart and ended up teaching him in composition for 5 months. And some historians have referred to Johann Christian Bach as the only true teacher of Mozart.
Interesting.
I don't know how significant 5 months can truly be, but apparently he was like a huge influence on Mozart. And Mozart like did a bunch of arrangements of his works and dedicated a bunch of music to him. And I think there was some quote I read that was like, music has lost a hero or something that apparently Mozart said when he learned that Johann had died.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought of J.C. Bach as being that important.
Yeah. So clearly he had contemporaries that looked fondly upon him. A fun fact about him, J.C. Bach, is that in 1777, near the end of his life, he won a landmark case, the Bach versus Longman suit, which established that copyright law applied to musical scores as well as other things. And technically, this was a precedent only in English law. It didn't happen in America. But that was a big deal when that happened.
Did they just not have copyright for, it was only for like written stuff?
I think so. I think that
like books and things.
Yeah. I can't remember who we were talking about recently that also had some problems with copywriting their work and receiving like the proper kind of recognition and money for their compositions. But I guess this was
I knew we had some
setting
issues
case.
with, I think, Haydn, but part of that was because he was like working for the court.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That sounds right. Yeah. Papa Haydn. Yes. But yeah, so that was kind of a big deal, I guess, and that probably was a really big deal to all of his siblings, all of whom were composing music at the same time. Speaking of which, Mr. CPE, Mr. Carl Philipp Emanuel Bach, was also a composer, of course. He was born in 1714, so he was much older than his younger brother Johann. And he apparently strongly influenced Haydn and Beethoven, speaking of Haydn, and he was referred to as the Hamburg Bach. It seemed like he was less of a big deal than Johann. He was sort of, some of the reviews were a little bit more middling about him. Like some people kind of, it almost felt like they were sort of like, yeah, okay, Nepo baby, like you're fine, whatever. But he
Mm.
was much more expressive. His music was a lot
Yeah.
more romantic than classical. So he is again kind of on that cusp of like, we're leaning into romanticism a little bit here. We're getting a lot more expressive and sort of
Yeah.
like
So you might
emotionally
even say
driven.
that like he was a little bit ahead of the time, maybe, in a sense
Yeah.
that like they weren't necessarily ready for romanticism yet. I think that
And yeah, and that might be
romanticism
why,
similarly is kind of like the response to like what the classical period did. Like the classical
definitely
period really broke things down and said like this
broke
is
things
music at
down.
its, but it really said like this is music at its core, right? It said like
Yeah.
we're gonna kind of simplify, do away with all of like the over ornamentation and the things that make this a little cluttered.
Hmm.
But then like it again in a similar way, it was able to set the stage for romantic composers to come in and really be obsessed with like how can we take now the really good building blocks that the classical period has given us and build something crazily expressive. Like I think that's something that, you know, Beethoven does so well is he really
Yeah.
you know, he understood the form and what music was, and he really, really brought the emotion into music, I think, in a really cool way.
Yeah. Apparently he was heavily influenced by Carl. So that says something.
So yeah. The
So
Hamburg
there's that.
boss. Hamburg.
Yes.
Hamburger. Hamburger Bach.
Did you call him boss? The Hamburg boss.
The Hamburg boss.
Exactly. So yeah. So those were Bach's most significant children, his best contributions in terms of kids.
Contributed a lot of kids.
Exactly.
Way to go, Bach.
Hmm. So who else
Um,
was around back then?
The last composer, I think, that is kind of in this era before we get, because we'll talk about Haydn and Mozart, I think are pretty, those are the big heavy hitters in terms of the classical period.
Yeah.
But this like in between bit, we have Christoph von Gluck.
Oh, von
Um,
Gluck.
so Gluck is born 1714 through 1787. Gluck was kind of known as one of the bigger influential names in terms of opera since like the really early Italian opera. He's kind of the one who made significant strides in opera since its like conception is kind of what he's known for.
Okay. Okay.
So one of the things that he was kind of getting frustrated with the way the opera was in the Baroque time period, it had kind of gotten to the point where, like we said, it was absurd. It was just very commercialized. It kind of felt
Mm,
like
yeah.
these composers were just writing arias, being just star vehicles is what these
Oh,
operas were
yes.
becoming,
Mm.
where, you know, the plots were getting absurd. The music was written to serve these, you know, diva castrati and, you know, singers. And so he actually wrote, one of the things he wrote, I saw in he kind of had like a manifesto sort of thing. He said, I sought
Ooh.
to confine music to its true function of serving the poetry by expressing the feelings and situations of the story without interpreting and cooling off the action through useless and superfluous ornaments. I'd further believe that the greater part of my task was to seek a beautiful simplicity, and I have avoided a display of difficulty at the expense of clarity. I assigned no value to the discovery of some novelty unless it was naturally suggested by the situation and the expression. And there's no rule that I did not willingly consider sacrificing for the sake of an effect. So,
Well, damn.
yeah, so that's, I think, honestly, a really good kind of blurb about what a lot of these composers were feeling at the time. You know,
Yeah.
they're like, we're over just this craziness. You know, we want things
Yeah.
to
Sort of
make more
a
sense.
reform of
Yeah.
opera, bringing it back to its true, what he thought to be its true form, its true function of serving the poetry. Yeah, exactly.
And his most famous opera, can you guess?
I think I know. I think it's Orfeo
Yes.
and Eurydice.
Yep.
Eurydice?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That classic myth that like
Mm-hmm.
every
Everyone loves.
opera has done. Like I feel
Yeah,
like every
exactly.
famous opera is that same myth.
I don't know why. Like, we can move on. We can, especially for someone who's like, I mean, I guess it makes sense if he's such a purist that he would run it back the same one, but it
Yeah.
is still funny.
Yeah. When I saw like, oh, of course, that's what we did again.
Thank you.
Interestingly enough, the Italians didn't really love him, but
Hmm,
the French really, really did.
that's so interesting. I wonder what the Italians' bone to pick was with this guy.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think like it might have been just like so entrenched there, like because that's where opera started. That's where they were.
True.
Like they probably are just a little bit more gatekeeping with a lot of their stuff. So I would assume that probably
They
had
might be
something to
like,
do with
this
it.
German is coming in here and telling us how opera is supposed to sound. Are you kidding
Yeah,
me?
exactly.
I don't blame them. I would also be like
Yeah. And then interesting tidbit, he taught Marie Antoinette.
whoa,
I know.
the one who was beheaded?
I'm
She
assuming.
beheaded? Yeah. Yeah.
I'm assuming. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, that's cool.
So, yeah. So he is kind of considered one of the most important Italian opera writers between Monteverdi and Mozart.
Wait, he is Italian?
Italian opera, like
Oh, okay.
writers of Italian
Okay.
opera.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was like, that name is not Italian. There's no way. Christoph Willibald Gluck is an Italian man.
No, like composers that wrote in Italian language.
Okay, this is making sense.
Hmm. Yeah. Kind of to separate from like any French or German opera, different thing.
Go off, Christoph.
Should we play our favorite game?
Yeah.
It's time.
Ooh, okay. Okay, Wed Better Behead. I think we have to throw Marie Antoinette in there.
Just because.
Just because. So Wed Better Behead, Marie Antoinette. Let's do Johann Christian Bach and Millennial Grey.
Okay. There's a lot to think about there. I don't know. I think I'm gonna have to behead Millennial Grey.
Yeah, agree.
Just because I appreciate what it did.
Yes.
But I sometimes I feel like when I'm walking in a space that feels like it definitely was
It was Millennial Grey.
designed at that time, it just feels too sterile.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Okay, so behead Millennial Grey.
Behead Millennial Grey. Maybe bed Marie Antoinette.
Yeah, why not?
Why
I
not?
bet she was fun.
Or yeah, and things don't end super great for her. So I don't know if I want to
Just
be
bed.
married to that.
100%. I think that's completely fine.
And then I'll wed J.C. Bach.
I love it.
Yeah.
I'd probably do something similar. But I don't have any appreciation for Millennial Grey. I don't have any sort of like, thank you
You're
next.
just like, it can go
It's more that
die.
I'm like, you're done. Yeah, behead. Um,
Are you
yeah,
in
I think
like your
wed.
maximalist era?
It's not an era, girl. It's been me my whole life. It's not even like maximalism. It's just that I find Millennial Grey to be incredibly boring. I really like mid-century modern. I really like
Mm,
even like a little bit like more like I don't know. I like older stuff. I like stuff with personality. I don't like
yeah.
gray things. Like the stuff in my house, like look at this room. This room is not going to be a millennial gray space. There's crap everywhere. That's my kind of space. Crap everywhere. That's the style I call it. Okay, so we're beheading millennial gray. We're gonna wed JC Bach. I agree with that. He seems like a nice guy. I mean, actually
You don't know
no,
too
he
much
doesn't seem like
about
a
him.
nice guy. I don't know anything about him. He seems like
Well, he
fine.
does seem the more emotional one, more in tune.
Yeah, and he married someone 11 years younger than him.
Wait, no. JC. No, he's the like one, not the emotional one.
Yeah, that's That's CP, Carl. Carl. I bet he was like a really tearful guy. I get that vibe from him. And
Tortured
then yeah, we're gonna bed Marie Antoinette. I bet she's a hoot and a half. And then it's kind of like an I knew her when,
during the whatever let them eat cake thing. You're like, I don't know who that is.
Ooh, yeah. I don't know who that is. Embarrassing. So
Exactly.
yeah, that's how I feel about the classical period personally.
Yeah. Pretty well. I mean, we haven't even gotten there yet. To be fair,
That's true.
because we're kind of just in that
This
in
is sort of the
between. We're setting the
emergence.
stage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting into it then.
Yeah. Excited to talk about Mozart and Haydn.
Well, yeah, we just touched on him a little bit, just tapped his little 8-year-old boy head today.
Boop, little boop.
Wolfgang.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope you learned a lot. I know I did. And look forward to seeing or talking to all of you again next week.
Yeah, you'll hear me next week.
You'll hear us next week.
That's a threat.
You have a week to recover.
That's right. Same time next week. Looking forward to it.